All right, my name is Jason Knoll, and I'm interviewing Doug Lane for the Veterans History Project in partnership with the Office of Congressman Blake Moore at the Davis Catalyst Center. Today is October 24th, 2022, and we're holding this interview at the Catalyst Center in Kaysville, Utah. So, Doug, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start out, where were you born?
I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, on Naval Air Station Jacksonville at the hospital there. My dad was a naval aviator officer.
Okay. And tell us a little bit more about your parents. What did they do besides your father?
Well, my dad was as I said, he was an officer. My mom, for most of his career, was the typical poster Navy wife, officer's wife, organizing all the functions, doing all that kind of stuff. When I was little, she finished a bachelor's degree in computer science and was on a fast track to teaching at the college level when she had a car accident and a severe brain injury that put a stop to all that.
Yeah. Tell us about your siblings.
So I have an older brother named Jason. He's almost 10 years older than me. He served briefly in the Army. He's living in Oklahoma now. My sister Becky is amazing and is probably the most important person in my life other than my wife. And well, my kids too, but yeah. Yeah, I was the baby, so they did a lot to help raise me growing up.
What was life like growing up? Like some of your most vivid memories, or?
I didn't realize we were going so much into the personal family history. Okay. So I grew up in a small town in South Texas called Kingsville, which basically had three main things going for it. One was the Naval Air Station where my dad ultimately retired. And that's the second or third stop on the track for all naval aviators who are going, for any of the ones who are going to the jet training have to go through Kingsville. I think they start in Corpus, go to Jacksonville, and from Jacksonville go back to Kingsville if they're doing jets. If they're doing helicopters, they go somewhere else. So that was one thing. There's a major university there, probably the top university in South Texas is there, and then also the King Ranch. So I grew up around a lot of naval aviators and a lot of agricultural people, which is an interesting blend. Life was hot, and because it was a Navy town, all of my friends, I could expect I would get new friends every 2 to 3 years, and my old friends would go away, which is good practice for people coming in and out of your life. And you learn how to make the most of the time that you have with them. I do all the normal kids stuff, played soccer. Because all these Navy kids were coming from up north, they wanted to play hockey, and hockey in South Texas is not usually a thing. So I learned how to rollerblade and got a stick, and they taught me how to play hockey on basketball courts, and I don't know, it was a good time. Music was a big part of everything. I took piano lessons when I was young, joined the band. The band program in that area was hugely competitive. I think because there's nothing else to do. And so that was a big part of life. My grandparents largely raised me, especially after Mom's accident. My dad was gone quite a bit, and so my grandmother, who was the daughter of cotton farmers, and my grandfather, who was himself an Army vet, they were constant figures in my life.
So, did you after this? Did you go to college? Did you do anything specific?
No. I ended up going immediately into the military right after high school, which is something I swore I would never do up until the moment I decided to do it. I had watched kind of the military life that my dad had, and I didn't want to be anything like him. But then two things happened. One, he and my stepmom, after my parents got divorced, he and my stepmom moved up north, and they offered to pay my full college tuition, but I had to play by their rules, and I wasn't about to do that. And then there was an Army recruiter who came by who really knew how to play on my ego, and he brought the Army band recruiter along, and they gave a presentation in our band class about joining the Army band. And I was dead set that I wasn't going to do it, and he said, "That's okay. It's really hard. You probably wouldn't be able to do it anyway." And that just ignited something in me where I just wanted to prove that I could do it. And so he started off with some basic theory questions just really, really basic music theory questions. Like, the only one I remember was how many flats are there in the key of A flat, which is 4. And he's like, "Wow, that's amazing. That's great. You know what? I know you're not going to join, but you should still come down to the office. I'd love to get you to take a practice ASVAB test." And I'm just my ego's eating it up. So I went and I took the test, and I finished out, and he said, "Wow, that's amazing. I don't think we've ever had anyone score that high on the practice test. What would you think about taking the real test and seeing how you do?" And so I scheduled the appointment to go up to San Antonio to the MEPS station, and took the test and got 90 out of 99, which qualifies you for literally any job you want in the military. I had this idea of the band, and so we had to audition for the band, and I failed it by 100th of a point. And I used to remember his name. The Army band recruiter who auditioned me, he was a tuba player. His first name's Mark, and I can't remember his last name, but he looked at my score when I was 100th of a point short of passing. And he said, "Look, and I know that you're going to go home and practice, and in 6 weeks I'm going to have to fly back down here and audition you again. So I'm just going to give you the..." Mark Hall is his name, yeah. So he just gave me the extra point. So he kind of fudged it so that I could get into the Army band. And from that point on, that was about February of my senior year, and I was just like really gung-ho that I was going in. I was so excited. I'm going to do this Army band thing. And I enlisted and shipped off on, I believe it was July 24th of 2000.
And just a single guy at this point.
Single, straight out of high school. I had been graduated from high school for 2 months, and my contract had me going to Germany after all my training, so I had a lot to look forward to. Yeah.
What kind of training did you?
So every job in the Army, you're a soldier first. So we had to go through the basic training. All of the same shooting, throwing grenades, gas chambers, all of that fun stuff. Which at the time I thought was kind of hard, but definitely not the hardest thing in the world, And then after that, we went to our AIT, the Advanced Individual Training, which for us was a 6-month music school. Which, looking back, was one of the most fun times of my life. I absolutely loved it. We had to do the Army stuff. Had to wake up and do, PT in the morning and get yelled at by drill sergeants and stuff like that. But from 7:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon, we were doing jazz band and concert band and private lessons and learning how to maintain our instruments and private practice and theory and ear training and finishing every day with drill band, marching band.
Learning how to field strip a saxophone.
Sort of, yeah. No, there was, you were expected to check in with the maintenance department. I don't remember if it was once a week or if it was once a month. I can't remember at this point. But you were required to clean your instrument, and so they would give you kits, and you'd have to go and I'd have to clean every joint of my saxophone and get it inspected and make sure everything was in good working order, and sanitize my mouthpieces, which now that my son plays saxophone, I can appreciate even more. But no, it was a wonderful time. And then we'd finish the day, at 3:30, and then we would still be expected to do 2 to 3 hours of private practice in addition to that
Right.
every day. It was an intense time, but it was also a time when I was surrounded by other musicians and other soldiers, people that were very like-minded. Discovered a lot of music that I had never heard of before. It was the first time I discovered, Frank Zappa, because one of my friends' roommates was auditioning with the piece Peaches and Regalia on guitar, and so I learned about Zappa, and I learned about all these artists, and I learned how to research music. The School of Music, whenever you had to perform classical solos as part of your audition, and one of the things they wanted you to do in preparation for that was go and find all of the different recordings of those solos and listen to all the different interpretations and note everything. And they had this wonderful music library, really large room full of vinyl, full of CDs, and that place was heaven. You could find just about any music recording you could want, even really obscure and out of print stuff. So that was a cool experience. Finished AIT, and had a couple weeks to come back and try to convince others to join the Army, because that's what the Army does. And from there shipped off to Germany.